What's going on? Stefano here, founder of Realty Rulers. So if you're a realtor right now and you got loads of leads in your pipeline sitting there, you don't quite know where to start, I'm going to give you the 4 things I personally learned for my own business to actually be consistent with my own leads. And at the same time, the 4 things I help my clients do to actually be consistent with their own leads. Since consistency, honestly, is what I found like one of the biggest problems that plagues the entire industry, and it actually prevents the 99% of realtors from getting results with any sort of lead gen project they try and they attempt, right? So let's just get straight to the point. The very first thing I'm going to talk about is that you don't know where to start, okay? And this is a huge problem. What I'm talking about specifically is that when you log into your CRM, whatever you're using right now, you don't know who to call. Like, you just log in and you don't quite know who to call. You're quite lost. Like, hey, like, who are the guys I need to call today? And that's a huge mistake I made personally for my own business, because it's easy to say, hey, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna plan it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and you have to follow with the leads, and you don't know, which leads needs to be touched today and which leads need to be touched tomorrow, and it becomes a nightmare pretty quickly if you're generating a decent amount of volume. So what I did for me and my clients, I actually created this CRM system. I'm going to show you in a second. Now, I know that you might have a different CRM. Even if you have a different CRM, I'm going to give you the principles to actually make this work for your own CRM. Okay, so right now you're inside one example. I created like a dummy view to make sure we are able to grasp the principles behind what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm saying with prioritization. So as you can see here, I got hot leads, warm leads, all active leads, cold calling leads. That's an example I decided to put in because, again, I know you guys, a lot of realtors are cold calling for sale by owners, whatever. So you must have a way to have a list with all those leads, and then a list with all the ad leads, paid sources leads, and then a list with, for example, let's say referral leads, whatever. You don't want to merge everything into one huge list, right? And at the same time, I also got email lists because personally for some realtors might be sending like email marketing, and so email list is all the people who are reading and receiving your marketing emails every single week or every single month if you have like a newsletter, right? And so what you need to do with your own CRM right now, do it right now, stop the video and do it, is you need to go in and you need to create like a hot leads, warm leads, and active leads, P1, P2, P3 system, right? If you don't understand what is this, just go back to my second video I made about this. It's a huge one. It's like 40 minutes long, and I basically explain the core foundations behind all this prioritization and automation backend system, okay? But what I'm saying here is that hot leads hot leads P1, right, are going to be leads who came in less than 7 days ago. I'm going to show you the filters now. Are going to be leads who came in like less than 7 days ago, are still in the first stage of the pipeline. Right now I'm going to show you the different stages of the pipeline so you understand. So didn't respond to you yet, didn't book an appointment, less than 7 days ago, so still fresh. 1 to 7 days is the best stage to actually get them to the finish line. Not, of course, to the listing because the process is long, but actually meet them or talk to them on the phone. Last email open date is less than 1 day ago. So what I mean by that is that they are reading your stuff. And so, for example, you might see some leads in here from your email list. There's an option to actually filter them out. But with your own CRM, what I want you to do is, if you can, create a list using this kind of filters. Now, of course, every CRM is different. I'm just trying to make you understand that you need to have this kind of lists with these principles. Like, okay, if this lead is inside this stage in my pipeline, okay, that means that it's still hot because they didn't respond and came in less than 7 days ago, or they are reading my emails, right? So now here, to make the dummy view, I created by WhatsApp. This doesn't matter, so just don't count this filter in. But again, I know every CRM is different. I'm just showing you what I do personally for my own, so you can take the principles and apply them to your own custom system. But the principles are the same for like warm leads and all active leads. Warm leads is like the only difference from these filters is just that created less than 7 days ago. Instead, warm leads are like created between 8 to 16 days ago. Okay, again, go back to my second video, and I'll explain more about this in that video. But no active leads is simply 16 to 30 days plus all leads that came in like past 2 weeks and still haven't been in touch. Most likely those guys are not that engaged, but we don't want to waste them. So we want to make sure we have that P3 list that, for example, like once a week we might go in and touch and maybe just give them that call to hold that list all together, right? Now the biggest thing is you can do for your own system is actually this. I'm going to show you now. I'm already in that pipeline there. Is you see right here, I got exactly 9 stages. Okay, so if you have a CRM, you can just copy this. I highly recommend you do, because that's been working really well for me and for my clients. Is you can see the first stage is new lead in, second, respond to a text or an email, right? Third is listing appointment booked, CMA drop booked, holding nurturing now and later, 100 contract pending, closed, and unqualified. So what I mean by that is that, wait a second, okay. So what I mean by that is most of your leads are gonna be here, right? But the biggest thing I personally need to automate my pipeline, I created my dummy contact myself here, right? Is when you have a contact here, and whatever CRM you use, I'm sure you have a feature like this. What I do personally for my business, right, is I go here, I set a task, let's say call in 2 weeks. I set the deadline, could be 2 Mondays, right? And actually today is already 28, so it's gonna be 11, confirm. And he was on vacation. I added task. And in 2 weeks, what's gonna happen with our own pipeline system, that's what I create for my clients, this guy's gonna go here. So what I want you to grasp from this as a principle, right? Because this video I'm not giving you like, it's not a copy paste thing, of course, because every CRM is different, but the core principle is, number one, if you want, copy the stages on your own CRM. But number two is that you should have 2 lists. Number one, a holding nurturing leader. So guys who are like kind of burning, like a back burner, right? Let's say you call a guy, like you're gonna call him again in like a month. You're not gonna remember about that, otherwise, or you're gonna remember about him, but it's gonna take loads of resources, right? Or mental energy. So what we do, you put these guys, you set a task, whatever you need to kind of make sure is you note it down that you're gonna call in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks, boom, it's gonna go here, right? That's the principle. So for your own CRM, it might be different, but again, I'm sure that if you Google it, you'll find a way to do it. But for my own CRM, that's what I do. If you're using something similar, just add a task, and essentially in 2 weeks is gonna go here. But the main thing, just copy the stages and have a pipeline system, and make sure that every single day, at the end of the day, you actually clean it. So the best way to stay consistent is divide things in like small chunks. So that's another principle I want you to take away from this. If you divide things into small chunks, doing things a lot easier, right? So, and that's basically the first point. So you don't know where to start. So now at this point, you have your prioritization tool and you have your pipeline automated. So you log in and you call all your holding nurturing now. If you go to contacts, you just start with your hot leads, okay, in P1. Now, the second thing, you believe you're not consistent. That's so important. That's such a big lesson I learned from Ed Milet and Alex Ramosi at the same time, 2 really high-level entrepreneurs, right? And the second thing is that if you believe you're not consistent with what you do, you won't be consistent as a byproduct. So what I mean by that is that if you believe, you constantly think to yourself and you say to yourself, hey, I'm not consistent, I consistently lack this, or I'm so bad at following up with leads, that will be your reality. So it's very simple, right? And so if you ask yourself right now, okay, what do I believe about this? What do I believe about myself when it comes to following up with leads? And if your belief is like, okay, I'm terrible at following up with leads, that will just be your reality, right? So if you question that, and your reality for the past whatever month is that you've been slacking with your leads, and your belief is I'm terrible with leads, then it's just a confirmation that your belief is affecting your reality. So the only thing you have to do is change your belief, and you actually believe you're consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to touch now how to change your beliefs, but at the end, if you stick to the end, I'm going to give you some resources to check out to eventually change this belief. But it's pretty simple. Like the very first step is identify you have a bad belief about yourself. And so I'm sure nobody talks about this. Everybody's like, oh, let's just run 300 different Facebook ads. But if you believe you're not consistent with your leads, you can have 1,000 leads in, but you'll never have success, because especially real estate, the number one metric behind any sort of success is following up, right? And so you got to believe you're really good with it if you actually want to win, right? Pretty simple. Okay, so the third thing is actually you don't time block. Okay, that's something so big I learned from my own business, is when you block out something in your calendar, you actually do it, right? And that's crazy. That's simple, but nobody does it, right? And everybody thinks that your schedule is a prison, but your schedule is actually a way to be more free, because if you schedule stuff, you get more done, and then you're more free to do other stuff. That's what I personally found out for my life and my business. And so, again, check it out. Deep Work by Cal Newport. I guess you already know who he is. Cal Newport is multiple, like, I guess, like New York Times bestseller, whatever. Like, he's super known guy. But again, what you have to do, blocking your calendar half an hour to an hour a day, depending on the leads you have, and just do it, right? Dedicate full attention to your task. So what I recommend is that you do it in a time of the day where you know you're less busy potentially, or you don't have like external distractions. That's the thing Cal talks about inside his book. But the biggest thing again is that if you don't do anything else, you finish faster than you can imagine, right? You don't have to follow up with them for 3 hours, because while you're following up, you're just 300 tabs open, and your mobile is open, you're on a call with another person. Like, it's just a nightmare. So what I recommend, if you have to follow up with them, just do that task, and that's it, right? That's something that Cal talks about inside, again, his book, Deep Work, right? And then again, just by blocking it on your calendar, you'll be 98% more likely to do it. And it also applies to other areas of the business where you feel like you're slacking, right? So what I'm talking about is that if you're slacking, for example, in doing let's say another task that might be painful, right? Cold calling. If you're slacking in cold calling, you know you should be calling more people per day. You're not doing it. Reason why you're probably not doing it is because you're not blocking it on your calendar. And so you're finding other things to do in the meantime. And at the time, like, okay, like, maybe let me work on my logo, right? Instead of cold calling, right? That might be a thing, right? Or whatever. Let me do this. let me post this cute post on social media instead of cold calling, right? Again, that depends on the stage you're at, of course. But if right now you're just starting out, or you're still cold calling, whatever, is if you block it, you're going to be 10 times more likely to actually stick to it. Because great thing Robert Cialdini talks about inside his book, Influence, just giving you gems here. You can check him out. Robert Cialdini book, Influence, is human beings want to stay consistent with their word. And so if you block it out on your calendar, you make a commitment to yourself, most likely you're gonna do it, right? What happens is that you say, oh, like, I'll do it. I don't need to schedule it. I don't need to, put it on my calendar, and then you actually don't do it, right? That's the problem. Now, the last thing, you don't track your stuff. That's by far, last but not least, because that's the biggest point for my business. That's the biggest thing by far. What gets tracked gets improved. So right now, for instance, I'm working for a tracker for our clients, and I might drop a video about it in the future, but what led to this idea was tracking stuff. So I was on a Sunday, I was sitting there analyzing the metrics from our clients, and I thought for a second, hey, like, since I started tracking this, like, I made better decisions for my clients and for my business. And so that's where I came up with this idea, like, hey, if every client had this tracker and they could track their performance every week and see numbers on a screen, there are facts, right? Hey, how many calls did I do this week? Did I slack? Did I actually follow through what I said? Like, if you have a schedule, right? If you track it, and you have to every day you have to write, no, did you follow the shadow? No. Did you follow the shadow? No. Did you follow the shadow? No. Like at the second week you do it will be so painful. You actually do it just because it's so painful to see on paper why you're losing, right? And so it's that simple, guys. It's that simple. Personally, for Realty Rulers, I track everything, right? Where each client is at in terms of performance, right? How many appointments I have in my calendar, where did they get from, right? Everything, every little metric you can imagine, I track, right? I don't know who had this quote, what gets tracked gets improved. I think Alex or Mosey, I don't know. But this is a huge one, guys. I learned for myself is what gets tracked gets improved. So right now, I'm going to actually give you some action steps you can do so you can actually start to apply this right now. And if, for example, like, depending on what you're doing right now, you can create something that's more customized, but everyone is different, right? I know that some of you guys might be toy referral based, some of you might be calling for sale by owners, some of you might be running Google pay-per-click ads, some of you might be running Facebook ads, some of you might be running TikTok ads, or some of you might be content creators on Instagram and YouTube, whatever, I don't know. But this is just an example of some metrics I will track if I was running ads, right? And depending on what you're doing, you can create something that you can adjust this and create something that fits for your business. So total dials, right? Let's say 300 dials per lead. Okay, how many dials I did per lead? Okay, dials per day. How many dials did I do today, right? And so on average, how many dials did I do every single day? So if you do 0 on Tuesday and 300 on Thursday, you'll see the average here, right? And what matters is the average, because you could slack 3 days a week and think, oh, 3 days don't matter, but then the average is low, right? And so if you do less every day, but you actually stay consistent on an average, that will get your average higher, and so you actually do more calls, right? And so pickups. How many pickups? If you have low pickup ratio, you might want to, for example, change your dialer. You might want to change your number, whatever. Again, the biggest thing I learned about tracking is that, okay, let's say I have, not like dials to conversation is low. Let's say I have that. And I have a question for myself, okay, like why is it low? Okay, what am I doing wrong? Okay, might be low pickup rate, okay. And then why, okay, the pickup rates are good. Okay, cool. Then where do I lose this, guys? Right? It allows you to really see the problem on paper, right? That's the biggest thing about tracking is that if you see, okay, like out of these pickups, I had these meaningful conversations and you had 20 pickups and 0 meaningful conversations. You analyze your opener, all of a sudden you just found out this word triggers resistance and they hang up. And so the problem is the opener, right? And so if you don't track it, you might think the problem is the whole script, when instead the problem is the opener, right? And so instead of just completely changing everything every week, if you actually start to track things, you actually be consistent with what you got and improve it over time instead of changing the whole thing every week and starting from 0 again, right? And so again, appointments, dials per appointment. For example, dials per appointment. Okay, why do you have I didn't have that many appointments out of all the dials I made? Okay, cool. The problem is that I had a lot of meaningful conversations, but out of those meaningful conversations I had, only a few of them showed up. Okay, so it might be something at the end. For my clients, for example, was analyzing this metric, and the show rate was not on KPI. And so I started thinking, okay, like how can I solve this, right? And what I came up with is, okay, I see this problem. The problem is this. The reason why was that I was not tying things down at the end, right? And so I was losing them at the end. And the result was that these guys were not showing up because I was not, using a title at the end, just saying, hey, yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. But if you just say, I'll talk to you tomorrow, they won't show up. If you don't have an automated sequence of text, emails, and stuff going to them, like if you're not sending anything to them before the call, most likely they won't show up at the appointment, right? That's the thing. And so what I did for them was actually, again, tracking this, and then the biggest thing, the biggest lever you can pull is tie down at the end. Again, human beings want to stay consistent. And so if at the end you say, okay, like, is there anything that could come up that might prevent you to show up tomorrow at 2 p.m.? You let them choose the time, for example, right? And say, okay, no, tomorrow 2 p.m. is good. Okay, no, 2 p.m. I'll be absolutely there. You sure you'll be absolutely there? Yes. Okay, cool. Now you did 2 tie downs, and the last thing they remember about the call with you was, hey, I said I was gonna be here 2 times. I must show up, right? And again, if the last thing they remember is, okay, I'll talk tomorrow, they might say, oh, I don't wanna talk about this today, because for a lot of sellers, for example, it's quite stressful. It's quite stressful to talk about selling, and so if they have you don't want to give them room to rethink about the appointment and maybe just procrastinate it, right? If they're not showing up, they're just procrastinating having that conversation that's quite painful, because they think it's painful because it's a big decision, because they don't quite know what's going on. And so that's where you must tie down at the end, right? So went on a tangent here, but the idea of tracking is that if you track metrics, the key KPIs, key performance indicators, you'll be able to spot little problems and solve those problems, and over time improve your stuff, right? If you're not tracking anything, you just keep going in circles, right? So resources, beliefs, Alex Hermosi, pipeline system, second video, time blocking. Check out Deep Work by Cal Newport. That's it for this video, guys. Hope you find this valuable. I just tried to pack all the things that actually make a difference in terms of consistency. I don't think a cool Facebook ad is gonna help you out with this. So consistency is something more like backend, and at the end of the day, like, you know how to be consistent, in my opinion. Like, you don't already, but you need to be reminded about that. Like, what I personally did for myself is that I need to be reminded more than I need to be taught. So come back to this video multiple times if you feel like you're slacking again, and make sure you actually stick to these principles, because if you actually follow all the 4 principles, you'll be consistent by default. So just follow these 4 and you'll be fine. That's it. Hope you found this valuable, and I'll see you inside our next video.